Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. Happy almost football. My name is Rich Hoffman, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast presented by Dudat Dental Group. And I am here with my friend Fran Duffy. It looks like got a little sunburn, Fran, over the little bit of color.
Yeah, a
on
little color.
vacation.
Thankfully, no burn. I think it's just like the lighting in here. Thankfully, no burn. I've been trying to be judicious when it comes to the sunscreen, trying to set a good example for the little guy. But yeah, no, I'm excited for football to be here. Hopefully, out in the field here in a few days.
So I recently had a vacation, Fran, where part of one of the days was spent walking just around a bunch of parks all day, and a couple of my friends, they got extremely sunburned, and they were surprised. Like they didn't, we were kind of walking in very open spaces on a just brilliantly sunny day, and at the end of the day, they were like super sunburned. I was like, guys, like, come on, weren't you like, you know, we're in our 30s here. Like you got to put some sunscreen on. You got to set an example, like you said, for the kids. I mean, I was one of the worst. When I was a kid, I got sunburned so bad, and I have been scarred for the rest of my life. So I made sure to get going. Okay, friend. First thing I wanted to ask, because I believe tonight is the Eagles' ring ceremony, their
Yeah.
private ceremony, not the actual one. Before the first game. You went to the first one, right? You went to the one in 2018, or at least were a part of the organization. Do you have any memories from that night that you can share with us?
Yeah. So funny story is I actually missed the ring ceremony last time. We were on my wife and I were on vacation. We would have had to come back from vacation early to make it to the ring ceremony. And a lot of people say, oh, like what? Yeah, you cut the vacation short. Like I valued my vacation time. I was like, like time away. I was like, you know what? Like I'll get the ring when I get back. And so I missed the ceremony, but yeah, absolutely. The ability to everybody kind of open the rings at the same time. My understanding was like, they did like a 3-2-1 and everybody opened the box and got to see it for the first time all together. So I'm sure a lot of fun memories will be made tonight, certainly from a lot of the players and the staff.
I'm totally with you. Don't cut your vacation short for that. It's fine. Just go on vacation. You'll get your ring. Yeah. No, I think you made the right choice there. Okay. So today we're going to talk about the secondary. This is one of the last groups to talk about in our training camp countdown series. And Fran, I gotta say, I actually think I lucked out. Sometimes I don't get the good content days here. The secondary, I think, as far as training camp is concerned, is the most interesting position group to watch. At least, when I look at, there are probably 3.5 position battles in training camp, if you include linebacker, until Jihad Campbell gets healthy or figures out what position he's going to play. And 2 of them are in the secondary. So I don't know. I think this is probably the most interesting spot. So let me ask you, I have a million questions for you about this. In terms of training camp, let's start with this one. In terms of just strictly training camp, when it comes to all of the position groups, and you're watching, and you and Bo and Zach are writing down your notes, and you're trying to observe as much as you can, where does the secondary rank in terms of the position group where you could actually glean the most from practice and 7-on-7s and everything that you get in training camp compared to the other position groups?
It's a good question, and it's honestly it's a layered answer, because when you're looking at it, number one, it's a position I love watching DBs. Like when I'm evaluating college players, corner is one of my favorite positions to watch, and so I often find myself watching the DBs during training camp just because it's a position I enjoy studying. So I would definitely put it up there as one of the positions I most like to get eyes on when I'm on the practice field. But that said, it's also a position where it can be a little bit tricky to have like big takeaways on, because when you're watching, everyone loves one-on-one drills. So Zach and I did a piece a couple weeks ago where it was, what are your favorite things about training camp? One of my favorite things about training camp is being able to watch position one-on-one drills, wide receiver DB one-on-ones. Well, that is a drill that is geared towards the offense winning, right? Like a wide receiver can do a crazy triple or quadruple move that's not applicable to actual football gameplay, and it might look good on Instagram or on TikTok, but all of a sudden, like now everybody reporters right now, this player lost, the slot receiver carved him up. When in actuality, in a game, that's not how it would go. I also would be remiss if I didn't say one of the worst individual training camps I'd ever seen from
I think I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, Patrick Robinson, 2017.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like Patrick Robinson in 2017 was, he got beaten like a drum every single day, and he's lined up on the outside. And, they go and they make the trade for Ronald Darby right before the eve of the season. And then, all right, Darby starts outside. Patrick Robinson slides inside. All's well in the world. And he ends up being one of the heroes of the Super Bowl run once you get into the postseason, and was rock solid inside all year long. So it is a position where, there are definitely things you can take away, but I wouldn't necessarily believe every single training camp report when it comes to this corner didn't look good on this drill, or he lost on that drill. You just got to be a little bit judicious when it comes to understanding the recaps from those practices.
I am so happy that you brought up the Patrick Robinson training camp, because I was doing some work and I was at a decent amount of those practices, and he was getting burnt every single practice. It's the drawings our friend Jimmy Kempsky would do of the rainbow of the receiver running past the cornerback. That was Patrick Robinson every single practice. Torrey Smith, Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, they were all beating him deep. And look, I think part of it was there was excitement for Carson Wentz going into that year. And so, you could take, so it's always the question. It's the same thing with Lane Johnson and Bryce Huff last year. Right. It's like, well, like Lane Johnson's also pretty good. I think it's fair to say now it was fair to be worried about Bryce Huff in retrospect. But you're right. They bumped Patrick Robinson inside, and he's phenomenal the entire year. He makes the huge interception return against Minnesota.
Yep.
Yeah. So it was. I will always remember that. Just thinking like they're completely screwed at the cornerback position. And that guy actually was a huge part of winning them a Super Bowl. Yeah, and I liked your point, too, about the one-on-ones. The way I view one-on-ones whenever I watch them, whenever the DB gets a stop in a one-on-one drill, it's like, wow, that's amazing. Like, amazing play, because you're right. The receivers, they're running routes, and they have the type of freedom that they just don't have on the field usually. So that is
because that's the thing is that honestly, the way you put it is exactly right. Where when you see a DB win in that drill, that weighs heavily. That weighs more heavily for me than a guy losing that rep, because again, those drills are geared towards that player losing. It's the same thing with O-line, D-line one-on-one. When an offensive lineman stops a defensive lineman in that setting, that is definitely, that carries a little bit more weight.
Yeah. And like when it comes to this Eagles team too, I got to imagine, I can't wait for the training camp reports. I'm going to read ours, and I'm probably going to read like 3 other ones too every single day. I thoroughly enjoy it, but I have to keep in mind, like, having to defend AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, like that's not a lot of fun when the drill is also geared towards the offense, I imagine. So I don't want to overreact too much. So let's actually start with the entire secondary. And I have a question for you. Of the 2 departing players from that core 5 that they had last year, which one in your estimation is going to be the tougher one to replace? Darius Slay or CJ Gardner-Johnson?
It's a good question, because I think that Slay was probably Slay was the better player last year in that defense. That said, I do think that safety is maybe you could make the argument a little bit more important in the defense. You could probably convince me and twist my arm to make that argument. That said, I do think that it's Slay, just because of the overall talent. Look, he's not obviously the same player he was 4 years ago, but I think when you're looking at what Darius Slay meant, we talked about this on the show in recent weeks. I think one of the last episodes we did with Daniz before he took off on his jaunt around the world. When you're looking at the versatility that Vic Fangio had on a week-to-week basis, where he could tilt the coverage any which way he wanted. It was some weeks they clouded a safety over Quinyon Mitchell's side and gave him a lot of help, and they left Darius Slay one-on-one. And then they might do that for 3 quarters, and then the entire fourth quarter, it's going back the other way, just because that's how the offense deployed itself, right? And it's like, all right, well, I know I've got equal amount of faith in either one of those guys to be able to hold up on an island where now I can shade a safety over to the other side. Now there's going to be a little bit more on Kelee Ringo potentially, or Adoree Jackson, whoever that other starter is, and we can get into that. But whoever that second starter is on the outside, is Vic Fangio going to have that same level of faith, or does that mean that you're going to have to move Quinyon Mitchell from side to side on certain downs? And that to me is one of the more fascinating storylines to follow as we go through the summer.
Probably played into, having 2 corners who are as capable as Slay and Quinyon too on each side too. It probably plays into the whole philosophy of Vic's defense too, right? Where you're basically showing the same picture before every down, but you can be versatile and you can tilt the coverage one way or the other. So I think you're right about that. You also, in just reading you and talking to you, like in the middle of the year, CJ who, by the way, I am pro CJ. I think he definitely really helped this defense, like the intangible part too of just being an irritant. Like I am convinced that actually matters too. In the middle of the year, it felt like there were a few games where you were like, okay, this guy is the weak link back here. Like teams are targeting him in the red zone. So, we'll see how that goes, but they certainly are going to have to fill both of those spots, 2 good players leaving. So would you agree with me too? Do you think this is going to be the most watched position group during camp?
I think so. I think that between that, Zach and I had the conversation about the defensive line yesterday. Obviously, you lose Milton Williams and Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham. I mean, there are big shoes to fill up front, but I think I would agree with you where this is the position where a lot of eyes are going to be who is the second corner, or if you want to say the third corner opposite the 2 sophomores in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, and then who's the other safety. Those are important positions in a Vic Fangio defense when you're talking about a group that's probably more important to be built from back to front. And so I think these are more important position battles when you start talking about the overall state of this Eagles defense in 2025.
You convinced me that Tyler Steen is going to be the most watched player just because he kind of stands out on the middle of that line. But yeah, I think especially because you have 2 spots to fill out of these 5, like I think people are going to be paying a lot of attention to that spot. I mean, the rest of the team is just very good, right? And I think we have a lot of known quantities up and down the roster, which is a great place to be. But in terms of trying to find some training camp content, I do wonder if we will look a little bit in the secondary. Okay. Let's start at the corner position, and let's start with the guy that we don't know about, right? We'll save the known quantities for a few minutes down the line here. Kelee Ringo, I have to say, is still a full year younger than Quinyon Mitchell. Actually, Quinyon Mitchell's birthday today. Happy birthday to him. Kelee started 4 games down the stretch of that 2023 season where the entire defense is falling apart. So, Fran, in terms of this is a guy you studied in college. This is a guy that you have 2 years of film on. Not really 2 years of film because he didn't really play a lot last year. So let's talk. What are the strengths of Kelee Ringo? What are the weaknesses? And I guess from what little you have seen in the NFL, has he changed anything over these first couple of years, improved, or just needs to show things from that pre-draft scouting report?
Yeah, I think to answer the last part of your question first, that remains to be seen is how much he has improved, just because it's been such a small sample. And I am anxious to see what he looks like here this summer and see if some of the areas where he did need to improve, if he had taken that next step. And time will tell with that one. But in terms of like the strengths and weaknesses with Kelee Ringo, you start with the physical tools. And that's what attracted me most about his profile. We joke about how he's a full year younger than Quinyon Mitchell. That was a big part of the projection and the evaluation because he had outstanding height, weight, speed. He had all of the traits you were looking for. He could come down and deliver a big hit. He came through in crunch time in big moments for Georgia. We remember that defensive touchdown he had in the national title game. So this is a guy that consistently showed that ability that he could be that big play guy, a true shutdown corner with outstanding height and length. And, he could turn and run as well as anybody. The big things that I wanted to see from him, number one, would be the increased zone awareness. So, and that's very, very important in a Vic Fangio defense, is just understanding, hey, you know what? In this coverage call, what are the different routes that the opposing offense is going to run to try and attack me specifically, or this coverage scheme on my side of the field from this set, right? So you come out and it's a 3-by-1 set, and you just having that mental Rolodex of, hey, you know what, these are the plays that this team likes to run and this down and distance, and now I've got to make sure that I'm in a position to defend those type of routes. You see that time and time. That's one of the things I loved about Quinyon Mitchell. That's an area where you want to be able to see Kelee Ringo continue to improve and excel. And then on top of that, that should then put you in position to be able to make more plays on the ball. And I go back to Kelee's first training camp here in Philadelphia. There were a number of plays where he's playing an off coverage and there's a short throw in front of him. And it's just like, Kelee, like, go, like green light, like go, like make that, use that speed to kind of trigger and make a play on the football. And he was just like a touch late, or maybe he took his eye off the ball last night and couldn't finish. You want to be able to see him just be a little bit more opportunistic, especially given the fact that if teams are going to be staying away from Quinyon Mitchell, you know, in theory, like, all right, there's a potential top 10 corner in the league. We're going to stay away from his side. We're going to attack the inexperienced young player on the other side. You want him to be an opportunistic player. So even if he does have some mental lapses, he can almost be like the corner version of CJ where, all right, he's going to give up some plays, but if he can take some away as well and get the ball back to the offense, that can counterbalance that. You want to be able to see that from Kelee Ringo, because if he's not taking the ball away and he's giving up some of those big plays down the field, that's tough sledding, and that's where you probably are going to see you'd probably see the vet in Adoree Jackson there. So if he's able to make those mental strides, I'm excited about what he can be. I have no questions about him in the run game. I think he'll hold up fine there. He's always been willing. He's big. He's strong. He's a physical, competitive player. So I'm excited about him from that standpoint. But to me, it was the mental and the finishing ability for Kelee Ringo on the boundary.
So that scares me a little bit, because the mental ability is very important in this Vic Fangio defense. Like, I just even think back to Coop's pick six in the Super Bowl. That's just perfect. Like, they just completely pass off the routes. He realizes that he's free and he can freelance just because he knows what like the four other guys around him are all doing, and that they have the routes completely covered. So yeah, I'm a little worried about that. Now here's a question for you. Like, because they might target that other cornerback a lot, because we'll get into Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in a little bit. Like, do you think there is a scenario where maybe Kelee Ringo does have the better physical tools? Maybe he is better against the run, and certainly, his highlight plays or his highs are going to be higher than the other guy. Is there an argument to be made, though, considering how important the zone coverage and zone awareness is, that maybe you just want somebody who knows what they're doing in that spot, and Vic Fangio could maybe default to that? Like, I would imagine Kelee Ringo is the massive favorite for this job, just because of where he was drafted, because of his tools. But I think we do probably have to acknowledge that having somebody who knows what they're doing in that spot it could be something that the coaches look at.
Yeah, and I mean, you've been around not just like football, but sports like your whole life, and following coaching staffs and like following these like narratives behind the scenes, that sometimes that stuff kind of rises to the surface in terms of their usage in practice. So to me, like we will get a sense of the mental strides that Kelee Ringo has made, and if coaches trust him, by what this rotation looks like early on. If it's Kelee Ringo all the time working with the ones throughout the course of the early stages of the summer, that to me shows that, okay, they've got faith that he's picking it up and he's improving, and they're giving him every opportunity to earn this job. If it is more of a 50-50 split, to me that shows that, like, at this stage of his career, that if Adoree Jackson is coming in and trying to take that job from Kelee Ringo, that would not speak super well to what Ringo has been doing behind the scenes, in my opinion. So I think that if to me, like, that's an early sign for us when we get to next week, and even like for the weeks after, that if Kelee Ringo is a true timeshare at corner, then that's probably a little bit worrisome. I would say that's a medium red flag from that standpoint. But I mean, the other side of it too is, even if Ringo does win that job, all right, let's say, all right, Ringo, we're going into the season. We're going.
I hope he does.
Yeah, and you hope he wins the job, right? I'd be fascinated to see. We talked about how last year they tilted coverage either way. Like that, sometimes they tilted it towards Slay, and sometimes they tilted it towards Quinyon, and they were able to give both guys help and also leave either guy on an island. There is something to be said, and I wonder if they go about it this way as well. In certain situations, you go back to that, like Bill Belichick would do this all the time, where, hey, you know what, we're going to give help to the number 2 corner, but the number 2 corner is actually going to be over the number 1 receiver, right? So you take Kelee Ringo and you use his height, weight, speed. Let's say they're going up against, Justin Jefferson. All right, Ringo, you're going to go over Jefferson, and you're going to use that physical, use those traits. You're going to press. You're going to play up on the line, be aggressive because you've got safety help over the top. And now that's your essential double team on Jefferson. And now we're going to leave Quinyon Mitchell one-on-one with Addison and completely erase him from the progression, right? And so I think that that could be something that we see here from Vic Fangio as well. And that's I am fascinated to see how he treats that cornerback situation here as the season unfolds.
It's a big part of the conversation when it comes to this defense too, where it's just like, yeah, in past years and in past stops for Vic Fangio, the second year usually his defenses take off. Now with the Eagles, it took off after week 5 last year, and
right.
they really reached just an incredibly high level that I think even as somebody who like knows and understands how well they played, sometimes I don't even like completely appreciate how well they were playing really for 4 months last year. So where do they go from here? And we can talk about that in a little bit after the break. But one more thing before the break. Can you tell us what type of player is Adoree Jackson? What can you expect for him at this point in his career? Because he is an older player at this point. And what has he been up to with the Giants over the past few years?
Yeah, at his peak, he was probably one of the better, like pure, like smaller matchup man-to-man corners in football. He had the ability to travel, play inside and outside, primarily off coverage, but had that ability to get up and press against certain types of receivers as well. Obviously, you weren't going to put him up, face to face with Calvin Johnson, right? Like, in terms of that physical mismatch, just because he is a little bit on the undersized side of things. But I think when you're looking at him now, he's going to be getting by more on the mental side of the game. He hasn't lost a huge step, but he's certainly not the athlete that he was when the Giants initially signed him away from the Tennessee Titans a few years back. And so, at this stage, you'd probably want him more to be your 4th corner, just from a physical tool standpoint. But if pressed into action, could he be a replacement level number 2 guy? Potentially. And I think that's the way that the Eagles would probably look at that going in.
Yeah. Look, I am very much hoping that Kelee Ringo just wins this job. I feel like the Eagles learned a lesson last year where they decided even before the season started, hey, we got to start like trusting young guys. We got to start trying to lean into the whole player development idea. Now they had, I would say, like an outlier amazing season in terms of how that went. They hit on a bunch of draft picks, but they also got incredible coaching and they got better. I would hope that they learned that lesson and say, like, look, Kelee Ringo is the younger player here. He has a lot of tools. We can probably deal with a few growing pains the first couple of weeks because at the end of the year, we'll be a better defense. So I hope that is the case, but hopefully Adoree Jackson can provide like a level of competency to make Kelee Ringo win that job where it's not, if it's handed to him, like we could talk about the little semantics there, like, are they handing it to him? Do they want him to win the job? Whatever it is, but hopefully Kelee Ringo shows well in training camp and does that. Okay, so that is the cornerback position battle. When we come back from the break, Fran, we will talk about the guys that we actually know are going to play at the cornerback position. One of them podcasts with us. They're actually setting up for his show in the studio right now. But first, we will hear from a couple of our friends. And first, that is Bet365. Guys, whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. And there are 90 million users worldwide. And Bet365 live streams 780,000 events each year. They have early payout offers across the NBA and NHL. And Bet365, they pioneered live in-game betting. They offer the widest range of games and markets available for live in-game betting across 78 sports. And guys, new customers now get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5. Win or lose, sign up and use the code PHLY365. Deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get that $150 in bonus bets. Again, that is win or lose. And one of my favorite things Bet365 does, the early payout offer. And MLB season, it's starting right up, back up second half of the season tonight. Phillies against the Angels. And with the Bet365 early payout offer, you are a winner if your team goes 5 runs ahead with an instant payout on straight bets and parlay selections marked as winners. So guys, what you need to do and this is the breaking news from Bet365, new customers, you can get $150 in bonus bets when you bet $5, win or lose. Sign up, and like I said, use the code PHLY365 to deposit $10 and place a bet for $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins or loses. Bonus bets can be used on the spread, totals, player props, futures, and more. And whatever the moment, it is never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and over and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, Fran, here's an impression of me from yesterday.
Okay.
That's me walking into my house, sweating like a pig because it is feeling like a sauna in there.
Yeah, I mean, you know how it is this time of year. This Philly heat, it's no joke.
So, what do I do? Do I go jump in a lake? It's not going to happen. So, I just got a bunch of ice, held it, rubbed it on my face, stuffed it down my shirt, stuffed it down my pants. Only way I could think to cool down.
I mean, stop being the stereotypical dad, though. Turn on the AC. It's time to fire that thing up.
I don't want to waste money, be energy efficient.
Well, look, instead of icing yourself out or jumping into a lake, you could just check out Pico's energy-saving rebates. They've got deals on Energy Star cooling equipment that actually work and cut down on your bills.
So, no more ice down my pants?
No, you could skip the ice, save the ice, and you throw in my drinks when I come over.
The same ice?
No, we'll change the ice up.
Okay, fine. That's what's up.
All right, well, just head over to pico.com/ways to save. They've got tips for everything: heating, cooling, lighting, you name it.
And welcome back to the PHLY Eagle Show, presented by Dudat Dental Group. We are talking about the secondary a couple of days before training camp. They will get started up next week at the NovaCare Complex. We will have football back in our lives. I'm sure Fran is very excited about that. I know I certainly am. Okay, Fran, we talked about the big position battle at the other cornerback. Now, let's get to the guys who we know are going to be on the field and that we know are pretty darn good players. Quinyon Mitchell, we've been talking a lot about the Jeremy Fowler ESPN series of the best players around the NFL at their position groups. There have been a lot of Eagles who have been featured. The one I was most curious about, actually, Fran, was the last one that was featured. I was like, where is Quinyon Mitchell going to rank in this piece? And basically, it's not just Jeremy. I'm sure everybody has heard us talk about this, but it's not Jeremy Fowler who's doing the rankings. He's polling people from around the league and averaging up their thoughts together. Anyway, Quinyon Mitchell did crack the top 10 in year one. He was the number 9 ranked quarterback, and some of the coaches and scouts in there were talking about what a confident player he is, how he proved that he was able to handle top receivers last year. And one thing that I remember you talked about from back when he was at the Senior Bowl, it was like, can he play press coverage? That was not a big part of the college experience for Quinyon Mitchell, and he proved that he can do it. He's very good at off coverage and very good at, like we said, passing people off in his zone coverages, but he can do that as well. So good to see Quinyon make that list. I believe Cooper DeJean was on the also receiving votes. I'm pretty sure if they were ranking this not in alphabetical order, he was ranked 16th or so. So that's pretty good start for him, I would say, especially when you mostly play the nickel corner. I feel like pretty much everyone in front of him was not a nickel cornerback. Okay, Fran. So let's talk about Quinyon Mitchell. Year one has established himself as already a very good outside corner, somebody who looks like he's going to be a building block player on this defense for years to come. Year two, what are you looking for him to take that next step to maybe the elite of the elite? And how can he start doing that in training camp?
Yeah, I think the big topic, surrounding Quinyon here in year two is going to be just the takeaways. Just being able to capitalize on some of those opportunities. Last year, we kind of joked about it, but didn't get that interception in the regular season. Got the first one in the Super Bowl in the end zone. But when you're looking at Quinyon, the big thing you mentioned, the confidence that was cited in that piece, that absolutely stands out with him. And to me, that's something that I always value at the cornerback position. But he's got that ability to win from press, win from off, win in man, win in zone. All right, so you're just checking all the boxes with him. He's got all the physical traits to be able to hold up in every coverage. The big thing will be, all right, can you take the ball away? I'm going to be honest. I was a little surprised that he did crack the top 10 because that's a position where, sometimes like, your name kind of carries a lot of weight, even maybe longer than it should. Right. And so I was a little surprised that he was able to get that love. I don't think it's undeserved, but I thought that I was a little surprised that he was able to get into that list so early on in his career. So I think when you're looking at Quinyon Mitchell, the big thing here this summer, my guess is he's going to be matched up with AJ Brown more often than not. Typically AJ Brown, when they start doing like one-on-one drills in practice, and usually those guys are married up together. So in terms of like, all right, every day the same receiver and corner are going to match up. So you have the same matchups day after day. Typically AJ Brown will get first crack and will be on the far right side of the formation, and Devontae Smith will be the far left of the formation when they start doing the one-on-ones. If Quinyon Mitchell is the left corner, which he was for the spring, he was the right corner all last year. He was a left corner all spring. If he continues being the left corner, he's going to be seeing AJ Brown. How does that go? Like, you know what I mean? Like, does he make some plays on AJ Brown in these one-on-ones, or is it going to be AJ all day? That is going to be fascinating. But the big storyline for me, Rich, I think will be just creating more turnovers, finishing on balls a little bit more consistently than what he did as a rookie.
Yeah, that was frustrating for, I would say, like the first, I mean, honestly, all the year, right? Like, I think, he didn't get that interception until very late. And that was even late in the game. That was kind of like a funny moment. But yeah, I mean, he was in position really like all the time. It was like at some point, like you gotta finish on some of these plays. So yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a fair way to look at it. Do you expect him to travel more this year? I know you mentioned that he did see some time at the other spot. He basically just played on one side all of last year across from Darius Slay. We saw him at the other spot during the spring practices. Do you expect him to be a guy who maybe travels a little bit this year, especially considering how, what you have at the other cornerback position that's a little more unsettled?
Yeah, I think that will depend on their faith in Kelee Ringo and that whoever that second corner spot is. And again, it could basically there are a lot of different ways this can go. This could be a situation where, okay, yeah, we're going to travel Darius, or we're going to travel Quinyon Mitchell across the field against the number one receiver. And even if they're not playing man-to-man coverage, he will always play over top of that number one receiver. A lot of teams have done that. The Eagles did that at times with Darius Slay throughout the course of his career in different defensive schemes, under different defensive coordinators. So that could be something we see. Or it could be that he is going to always be the left corner. Last year, Slay was the left corner. Quinyon was the right corner, set it and forget it, and that was that. It could be that, because there are like numbers that say, all right, well, most quarterbacks are right-handed, most throws are happening to the right side, so sure, you want your left corner to be the better corner, and the ball is going to get there a little bit faster because QBs are typically rolling right, or they're trending to the right, so the ball will get there a little faster. You want the more reactive player to be there on your, on that left side, on that side of the field. And so it could be that, yeah, like Quinyon's going to be that left corner the whole time, or they could be switching it up. That'll be, again, that is one of the things that makes this cornerback position so fun to watch here as we go, not just through camp, but through the preseason. And then once we get to week one as well.
Fran, if I remember correctly, you probably remember this better. Didn't Q was playing all over the place last year during training camp? Like it wasn't obvious in watching the training camp practices that he was just going to be the left corner or the right corner the entire time. Yeah, last year.
Yeah, well, because Cooper DeJean was hurt, and so it was all right. Like who's going to be the nickel corner? And it was pretty early. It was within, I think it was towards the end of the first week. Quinyon Mitchell just showed up one day and was like, yeah, you're playing nickel today. And he jumped right in. And so Bo was spot on at that point. I remember listening to a show at that point and Bo saying, yeah, like to me, this means Quinyon Mitchell's going to be the starter on day one. You don't do that to the rookie and then he comes out and he looks pretty good in practice doing it. If you don't think that he can't just come in and be the starter, even on the outside of corner, the fact that they showed that level of faith in him and he responded well, I think that was a good sign for his immediate future.
Yeah, and I think it also goes to show, too, that sometimes coaches are trying guys out of different positions for different reasons, right? Sometimes maybe they don't have confidence that they're at the position that we thought they were going to stick at. And sometimes in the Quinyon Mitchell case, they have a lot of confidence that he's going to be fine on the outside, and they want to see what else he can do. So, yeah, I mean, I do remember, though, watching that first game against Green Bay and being like, okay, yeah, like he's just going to be set at this spot. And he took that position and was great the entire year. Okay, now let's talk about Cooper DeJean, who did not play in training camp last year. Got off to a slow start because of an injury. Some of the buzz I remember in spring was like, he's going to be maybe the outside corner in base. I think, as we've talked about, that's cool, but it's also something that in week 5 we might not really care about. You might not really even notice during the flow of a game because base coverage or base defense, I don't know why we still call it that anymore because it's not really used that often. So Cooper DeJean, in terms of what you want to see from him in year 2, like I assume he's probably just going to be the nickel. He was amazing at it. It was transformative for the Eagles defense when they put him at that spot last year. But what are you looking for him in year 2?
Yeah, I mean, I would expect that he's going to be the full-time nickel corner. And then my guess is that when they do play with 4 DBs on the field and you have that extra linebacker out there, that he is probably the second corner. He's probably going to be the right corner where Quinyon was last year. That would be my guess. And so I think when you're looking at it, DeJean is going to continue to man up on the inside. I think that is, again, we talked about like the safety and how important that role is in a Vic Fangio defense. The nickel corner is right there, and you might argue is even more important just because of all the different ways that he's able to impact the game and all the different position groups that he works with. Remember, there were times last year where teams would come out in 12 personnel with extra tight ends out in the field, and the Eagles would stay in their nickel package and bring Cooper DeJean down to play as like an extra linebacker down on the line of scrimmage, next to a defensive end, next to Nolan Smith. And it's like, they feel confident in his ability to play down in the muck, in the trenches, close to those guys. But then also he could play man-to-man, flexed out into the slot as well against a receiver. And so that versatility, I think, is extremely important. His communication with linebackers, with safeties, and with outside corners, that makes him one of the best nickel corners in the game already. And so I think when you're looking at Cooper DeJean, I would just expect more of the same. Like you want both of these guys, he and Quinyon, come out of the summer healthy, hit the ground running here in year 2.
It's almost a little boring just because they really proved so much last year, right? And they could even take a small step back and still be playing at an extremely high level. They were just part of an amazing defense, and they were both awesome last year. Okay, for the sickos, let's talk a little bit about the depth. I think one guy that stands out just looking at this depth chart that I'm curious to watch both, if I'm down there at training camp, but also in the preseason when he gets on the field. McWilliams, their 5th round pick, one of the cornerbacks. What can you expect? What are you looking for from him? And then are there any other guys that you're looking for in that cornerback depth group?
Yeah, I mean, McWilliams is certainly a player that I'll have my eye on. A 5th round pick, a rookie you would think is going to be on the 53-man roster. That would be the hope. This is a guy that has the ability to play inside or outside. I made some comparisons after the draft that he is like an Avonte Maddox-ish level player where, maybe ideally he's a nickel corner in the future, but I don't think that he is like prohibited from playing on the outside, even though he has a lack of size because of his competitiveness and because of his instincts, his ability to find the ball. That's the same thing you would say about Avonte Maddox when he was coming out of Pitt. And so I think when you're looking at McWilliams, I'm excited to see him. Honestly, like you go into one-on-one drills and we talk about how that's tilted towards the receiver winning. That's where he first popped to me, Rich, was watching one-on-one drills down at the Senior Bowl. I thought he was one of the best in those drills over the course of the week of practice down in Mobile. And so I'm excited to see what McWilliams looks like. But then it's a lot of familiar faces as well. I mean, Eli Ricks still here. He's in his 3rd year now, coming out of LSU and Alabama. When you're looking at Eli Ricks, what does he look like in the 2nd year under Vic Fangio? You look at Tariq Castro Fields, another guy who they got off the street, former Penn State corner. He's built kind of like McWilliams, has been primarily an outside corner, but he's on the undersized side of things. Parry Nickerson, the same deal. He was a former draft pick of the New York Jets, explosive athlete, smaller, probably more of your nickel, but all these guys, you kind of throw them into a bucket, shake it up and see like, all right, like out of this group, who stands out to be the 5th corner behind Adoree Jackson or Kelee Ringo, whoever's not the starter here once we get to August.
That will certainly be something to watch, and we'll probably get to see all those guys compete in the actual preseason games. Not a lot of the big names play in those games anymore. Yeah. I assume we will see a decent amount of those guys when the Eagles play in the preseason. Okay, Fran, next we are going to talk about what I think is the most interesting position battle on the Eagles roster, because I don't really know what's going to happen there, and I think it's very unsettled. Unlike Kelee Ringo, I think I know how that one's going to go, but this next one we'll see. But first, we will hear from a couple of our friends. And guys, Dudat Dental Group, our presenting sponsor. Your smile says a lot, guys. And let us introduce you to the team that helps you say exactly what you want with your smile. Meet the Dudat Dental Group. This is a team that is trusted to care for one of our city's greatest assets, the Philadelphia Eagles, the team we're talking about right now, and now entering their 5th season. So that's 2 Super Bowl appearances for the Dudat Dental Group. As the official dentist of the Philadelphia Eagles, Dr. D and his team have proudly served Philadelphia and its fans for over 20 years. They do it all, from robotic implant surgery and Invisalign to veneers, emergencies, and so much more. Locally owned and operated, Dr. D is a proud graduate of North Penn High School and the Temple University School of Dentistry. His commitment to the health and confidence of our community runs deep. So whether you're an MVP or lifelong fan, this is the team that you want caring for your smile. Check them out at PhiladelphiaEaglesDentist.com. That's PhiladelphiaEaglesDentist.com, and discover how you can smile like the birds.
Now I want to talk about our friends over at Branded Bills. I'm going to be honest. We started doing our reads for Branded Bills a couple weeks ago, and I had not heard of them previously. So I went to their website, and I'm like, all right, let's see what these guys are about. The selection of lids, Rich. I think you had said you and Jamie went through their site last week. Doesn't matter what you're looking for. If you're looking for hats, all right, you have snapbacks, you got your truckers, you got your fitted hats, your beanies, your t-shirts. There's all kinds of gear that you can get there, and there's everything you're looking for, no matter the style or even the brand. In terms of like, if you just want like a plain black hat, you've got that. If you want a team branded hat. I know that they've got deals with a lot of college programs around the country, including Penn State. I know we've got a lot of Penn State fans that listen to the show. You get the white and blue like Nittany Lions hat. That's a great color combo for a hat, especially in the summer. You get tan like I do, you get a little bit of color. You throw that white hat on there, it makes you look even darker. I'm a big fan of that Penn State hat. So no matter what you're looking for, you get some gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd. Branded Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear. Start your order, and their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel that you need. They've got a partnership with Penn State, like I mentioned, as part of that campus collection. And you don't need to be a Penn State grad. I mean, again, like SEC, out west, the Big 12, all of the ACC schools. They're covered all across the U.S. So make sure you go check out brandedbills.com. Use the code BBPHLY for 15% off your first order over at Branded Bills.
And welcome back to the PHLY Eagle Show, presented by Dudat Dental Group. All right, Fran, now let's talk about the part that I was looking most forward to, and that is the battle at safety. And look, it's going to be an interesting one. I think the first question is, we're assuming Drew Mukuba is going to sign here, because there has been and this is not just a Drew Mukuba issue. There has been a delay with a lot of the second rounders around the NFL and I don't know who the first couple players, apparently the first couple players in the round got guarantees that usually are reserved for first round players. And that has sort of backed up the entire second round in terms of when they are going to sign. It does feel like, you've seen in the news that some of the players have signed over the past couple of weeks. I mean, Drew Mukuba, I have seen the videos. He's working out hard with Jihad Campbell. So I imagine he's probably going to sign, but I guess we should have mentioned that part. Okay, so let's talk about it. Drew Mukuba, Sidney Brown. I think Vic Fangio also threw McCollum in there as well in terms of another player in there. Before we get into the individual players, Fran, I guess, why don't you handicap what this competition is going to look like heading into training camp?
Yeah, I mean, look, first off, as far as like the Mukuba contract situation, if I were to handicap that, I would say report day is Tuesday. my gut tells me that, like, all right, Tuesday afternoon, you'll get a tweet out. Eagles break the news that with a graphic and a picture of him signing the contract, that they will get that done. Now that we're starting to see like that cascading news with those second round picks, my gut tells me that'll happen with Mukuba and the Eagles here in the coming days. So once that started, I felt better about that situation. Now, as far as the safety room in general, it's going to be really interesting, man. How, again, it goes back to like the Quinyon Mitchell from last year, where they kind of threw him in and said, like, all right, like, sink or swim, and he was able to swim. Do we see that here with Mukuba early on in training camp? Do we come out and we see him working with the ones faster than we expect? And if he does well, my guess is it'll be his job. I think when you're looking at it, Sidney Brown obviously was coming off the injury last year. And even though it was, McCollum was ahead of him, there were other guys that were ahead of him, on the depth chart and in that pecking order. You almost want to give him a little bit of a pass. I was never like the biggest, believer in terms of Sidney Brown's upside. I really liked the floor. I thought that he could be a really good backup player, a third or fourth safety, but not a guy that I had like high expectations for in terms of being a starter. So I do think that he can come in and he can play a role. But my guess is that Mukuba, he's probably the front runner to be able to win that job. You want to throw in Andre Sam as well. I would say McCollum is going to be in the mix too. So all those guys I would expect to get a fair shake. Does it look like linebacker did a year ago, where, it was constantly like different combinations cycling in with the first team time and time again. And then at the end of the day, like, it turns out Zach Bond is going to be a starter and Devin White's not going to be on the team. And then Zach Bond turns into an all-pro. We didn't necessarily envision that a year ago at this time, but I think when you're looking at it, my guess is Blankenship will be in there with the ones every single rep. And then probably next week, I would say maybe in the following days after, it's kind of like a hodgepodge rotation. And then we start to get into, all right, this is going to be the Drew Mukuba day, and this is going to be the Sidney Brown day, or the McCollum day, or the Andre Sam day. They kind of narrow it down as you get further into training camp. And so that's my guess on how that plays out early on.
Okay, so Drew Mukuba is the favorite, and we'll talk about him a little more in a second. But something that you said about Sidney Brown was interesting, because I didn't necessarily notice that. I didn't really understand that. Sidney Brown, you mentioned that you thought he was more of a high floor player, and you've watched him 10,000 times more than I have. So to me, though, Sidney Brown, maybe I'm just over-indexing a little bit too much on his special teams work, where he's just like, his hair's on fire and he's getting in fights like every other game. Why do you think he is mostly a higher floor player but lower ceiling player?
So, like, the way I would describe it is, because he is such a volatile player, I don't like his ceiling as a starter.
I see what you're saying.
But I feel good about his role as a special teamer and like backup safety. So I like his role in terms of projecting him forward and making the team, right? And so I guess that's kind of how I look at it. Is I feel great. He should be a special teams ace and backup safety, and I think that he'll be great in that role. He should be like one of the best in the league in that role. I don't know that I can quite trust him, again, especially in a safety or in a defensive scheme like Vic Fangio's. That, to me, like, that was a weak spot of his game at Illinois, and even going back to his rookie year playing in that defense. I don't know that his eyes and his mental processing, all that, is what you would want. Again, a guy played a lot of football at Illinois. It's not like this is a one-year starter, a guy that didn't play a ton. He was a 4-year starter for the Illini, so this is a guy that's played a ton of football. It just never like clicked for him mentally. And so I kind of wonder, all right, does he just need to be like that heat-seeking missile, a specialty player on defense, best case scenario, and then he can be your special teams ace? I feel good about that projection.
Okay, that's, now that you explained it, yeah, that's the vibe I got, where, yeah, like, some of the bad plays for him would be pretty rough, and that does limit his ceiling. Okay, Drew Mukuba. So that's a guy that, unless you were watching a lot of Texas, that a lot of Eagles fans are going to get their eyes on for the first time in training camp, and I assume in the preseason. Had 5 interceptions last year from the safety position. Okay, so tell us, what is he good at? What does he need to work on?
Yeah, I think when you're looking at Mukuba, the big thing was his ability to kind of take the football away last year. You mentioned the 5 interceptions. He was definitely more productive last year than he had been the previous couple of years. He was at Clemson before that, started 3 years, going back to his freshman year with the Clemson Tigers. And so this guy has played a lot of football. To me, though, the instincts, the play recognition, the zone awareness, that was a strength of Mukuba's game. And that's why I felt good projecting him as a starter coming out as opposed to Sidney Brown. So this guy's played a lot of ball. Some of the interceptions he made, we did that film breakdown, the film room session in the studio with diehards shortly after the draft. That was one of my favorite individual plays we watched, was an interception he made last year where, it was a play, not exactly like what we saw from DeJean in the Super Bowl, but akin to that, where it was like, he was able to overlap and, jump into another area. He read the quarterback's eyes, understood where they were trying to attack, and was able to get into the passing lane and then finish and then make a play on top of that. I don't think that he's got, I think there's been some talk about like his nickel flexibility. I don't necessarily see that as something that it would be a definite transition for him moving into the NFL. I think there would be a little concern on my end about him playing in the slot on an every down basis. But you want to play him deep and let him patrol in that split safety scheme next to Reed Blankenship. I think he could be awesome. Like Sidney Brown, there is a little bit of volatility with him as a tackler. He will come down a little bit too hot, a little bit too fast, and kind of fail to break down and finish one-on-one. So there's a little bit of that with Mukuba, but again, I think that's an area where you can, in theory, clean that up. It's not because he's not like a tough player, a physical player. You'd rather say like, all right, hey, like, tone it down a little bit, be a little bit more tempered and disciplined as you go down the line of scrimmage, and then you'll make more of those tackles. You'd rather that than the other way. So, I'm excited about what Mukuba can bring here this summer.
Well, you got me excited just hearing that. Like, if he's a smart player that kind of understands coverages and can read quarterback's eyes and knows how to work with his teammates, that seems like a perfect fit here. I guess, Fran, we haven't seen too many Eagle safeties, rookie players. I guess, like, was Nate Allen starting his rookie year? I'm trying to think back to the last time we had like a rookie starting safety here.
Sidney Brown got some starts that year.
He got some at the end.
Yeah. Outside of that, yeah, that might be. I don't think. And Kirk Coleman was before Nate Allen, so Kirk Coleman might be another one in that boat. Or no, he was the same draft as Nate, right? Yeah, I think those would be the guys.
Well, the good news is that unlike those guys, they are being dropped into, I think, a better, more stable situation, especially with the coaching and the defense. So that is good. As far as Drew Mukuba, I mean, he's a smaller player, but it seems like he had some pretty cool highlights. Like he had some pretty hard hits, so that'll be fun to watch him play. Okay, as for the other guys, we have Tristan McCollum, we have Adoree Sam, like you said. We have Lewis Cine, who was, he's part of the Philly Dogs, but he doesn't seem to get mentioned a lot, either if that's by Vic Fangio or some other people. But those are other guys who could potentially be in the mix if both Sidney and Mukuba both falter.
Yeah, I think when you're looking at it, I should have mentioned Lewis Cine. I'm glad you brought him up because he certainly has the name. He's got the draft pedigree. I do think it was notable that it seemed like he was a little bit further down the depth chart in the spring compared to some of these other guys. I know that Bo brought up that Adoree Sam was getting a look with the first and second team, or it might have just been the second team. But I think that when you're looking at all these guys, Adoree Sam played a lot of football, played at a couple different schools in college. He was a sixth-year senior coming out, an older player, but had some corner background, so he's got some coverage flexibility. When you're looking at McCollum, McCollum is like, trying to think of a comparison there. It's similar to Sidney Brown in that he's got great traits. The body type's a little different. Sidney Brown is like your short, compact, rocked up safety, whereas McCollum is like your taller, longer, rangier guy. But both guys have the physical traits you're looking for. It's more just like the mental side of it. Now that said, like McCollum was ahead of Sidney Brown last year. Vic Fangio had the ability to play either guy, and he put McCollum in. And so I would expect that he's got the pole position on Brown as we enter camp. And so those would be the other ones. I mean, I think when you're looking at Cine, the big thing is like, what does he look like? We're a couple years removed now from that serious injury that basically caused his career to come to a standstill in Minnesota. Former first-round pick out of Georgia. All the intangibles were really, really strong when he was coming out. What does he look like a couple years without playing? I think that's going to be an interesting storyline. It's a little footnote to watch here as we go through the summer.
Yeah. And I'm very excited to watch this secondary group. Another nice thing is that they have a lot of continuity with the coaching staff. We mentioned this a few times during the offseason, but I think now that we get closer to the season, it feels like more and more of a win. And that usually when you are as good as the Eagles were last year, there's a lot of brain drain, right? Where sometimes the defensive coordinator they get plucked. That happened a couple of years ago when they fared well, and they frankly weren't as good of a defense back then. Luckily for the Eagles, they have an old guy who nobody really wants to hire as a head coach, who's the man. But they also have young position coaches who could get, a defensive coordinator job or maybe even a head coaching job at some point. And like one of the guys is Christian Parker. Seems like one of the more impressive guys really around the league. Like I think if there was, a poll of some of the, the up and coming position coaches in the league, he would certainly factor in there. But they were able to keep him, and I'm sure that'll help with a lot of these young players in the secondary.
Yeah, Christian Parker did an outstanding job with those corners last year, getting those guys up to speed. And then you also want to give love to Joe Casper as well, the safeties coach. Who Vic Fangio brought with him. He was in Philadelphia in 2022, working with Jonathan Gannon with that scheme, and then went to Miami because he was like a lower level assistant, when he first got here to Philadelphia. Went to Miami, worked under Fangio, was a safeties coach there, and then Fangio brought him back here, and he coached the safeties last year and did an outstanding job of getting Blankenship and CJGJ up to speed as well in the new scheme. So I think with both guys, two potential coordinators, down the line here with both Christian Parker and with Joe Casper. It feels like Parker's probably, in the driver's seat there to get that kind of an interview earlier on. But yeah, I mean, this whole defensive staff was outstanding last year and a big reason for their success.
Yeah, I mean, look, the theme of I think a lot of these defensive training camp countdowns is they're pretty good. There are going to be some question marks, right? They're going to have to figure out a couple of the positions, and we talked about them today. But the base, the infrastructure, both from the talent level and the young players on this team, but also the high level of coaching and the continuity that they have with the coaching staff, they should be pretty good. Year to year, we always talk about how defenses seem to be a little bit more volatile, and for good reason, right? Like they don't, the quarterback position tends to be the spot where you can have success, year over year, sustained level of success. So yeah, I think they're going to be fine in this spot. All right, so I guess this is the last weekend until we have real ball, Fran. I guess you should relax. I don't know what you have what you have planned for this weekend, but enjoy it because I think starting next week is the first practice Wednesday.
First practice is Wednesday. We've got the practice schedule, so we'll go. You kind of forget, like, oh yeah, practices on the weekends and stuff. So it'll be good to get back into the swing of things. Again, I'm hoping to be out there. We know Bo and Zach will be out there every single day. So I think when you're looking, stay tuned right here on the channel. We'll be live every single day, bringing those practice recaps and going through exactly what everybody saw out on the practice field. So it'll be fun to get back into the rhythm, man. Like I don't know about you, like. Yeah, I talked about this with Zach last week. I'm a creature of habit, and so like while it is fun to break up like that routine once we get into like post draft and it's like May and June and the early stages of July, but I love getting back into the routine, and so I am welcoming the start of training camp from that standpoint. Although I do prefer the routine of the regular season to the routine of training camp, where it's a little Groundhog's Day-ish. I do like the rhythm and the cadence of like the Monday through Sunday of the NFL season a little bit more.
Well, and especially with what we do now too, right? Like we need new stuff to happen, regardless of if the team, like I think the Eagles have generally become, as far as the offseason is concerned, like they've become boring in all the good ways because they just have like an amazing foundation and they're going to be a good team. And there's not really a lot of volatility. We mentioned that they're just bringing their whole defensive staff back, which is crazy. But it'll be nice to have some new stuff happen to get some practice observations, see who some of the depth players are. Okay, so I think that about wraps it up. I believe we're getting Bo back next week. Is that what I heard?
We get him back Monday. It sounds like we will. I think I'm pretty sure he's back in Monday, back in the saddle. So it will be great to get Bo back in. I don't know that he is aware of like the cult following that the Pico ad has developed, because I knowing Bo, like Bo has not been watching and listening to every single show. He certainly has not been like watching live and in the chat, because I feel like he would make his presence known in that scenario. So I don't know that he understands like the following that has generated around the Pico ad. I'm excited to get his thoughts on the filming of the Ospreys teaser, out on site there. there. So I'm excited to get his thoughts there. Make sure you by the way, you can buy tickets to the Ospreys this year. It's in a couple weeks in August. So you check out our social channels, check out allphly.com. You can get the date there for the Ospreys. That's going to be a blast. I will be there in attendance that night. You do not want to miss that show for certain. Right in the middle of camp. No practice that day as well. So we're going to be nice and fresh, ready to roll for the Ospreys. So yeah, we've got a lot to catch up with once Bo is back in here next week.
Yeah, I mean that Pico ad. I mean, wow! Talk about bang for your buck for an advertiser. I mean, wow!
I mean, it was, honestly, like it makes me smile every single time we run it. I told Zach that when we did 3 takes. First take was like, all right, like let's get our feet wet. Let's just understand, like, all right, here are our talking points. The second one we did, and it had like one of the best bloopers that we possibly could have had, and I've never seen Julia laugh louder than when we had that blooper. It was a really strong one, and then so we had to throw that one away, and then we did the final cut. So 3 takes, got it done. Claire in the chat is asking, and Claire, you're not the first to ask if you can see the blooper.
Fran, real quick, we're gonna go to overtime.
Yeah, I don't know that we're ever going to see that blooper. We'll see. I mean, maybe for the Ospreys, we'll talk to Julia and see if that can get whipped together for the attendant for the crowd and attendance for the Ospreys.
I could see the sicko community that becoming a major cause. You know, I could see like the release the Julia cut. You know, I think that could we could see that. Maybe it does get played at the Ospreys too. Like there's always some curveballs that Bo and Julia will have for you during those ceremonies. So yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. I believe it's August 6th at the Hard Rock Cafe in Philadelphia. Yes. Taking it back. Tailgate.
Let me ask you a question. I've been doing some of these blind rankings, surprising people. I feel like this is a good overtime discussion.
Okay.
So you're aware of the blind ranking videos, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I polished off just today. We had like we got like a thing of spinach artichoke dip, right? And so I grabbed a few crackers, had it with lunch. I had a little sandwich, did the spinach artichoke dip. I'm thinking like I like spinach and artichoke dip more than I did when I was a kid, like for sure. That's like one of my favorite dips. So I want to do a blind ranking on you.
Okay.
On dips. Are you a dip guy? Number one.
I'm not like a huge dip guy, but I'll dip. Let's go. Dabble? Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. First one thrown at you. We're gonna do 5. So you don't know what comes next. And you've got the first one is guacamole. So guac. Where's guac rank for you on the dip scale?
Ooh, it's pretty high. I'm gonna say 2.
Okay, that's a good one. Hummus.
Ooh, I also like that. 3.
All right, so here's my take on the first 2. I can't stand chickpea flavor like anything. Like I am so out on garbanzo beans on chickpeas. Like hummus, like is an easy 5 for me. You said you put it at 3.
Yep.
All right, and then guac at 2. I like guac. I feel like guac is like high floor, capable of high ceiling. But I feel like for that one, that would be like a rock solid 3 for me. All right, number 3 on this list, ranch.
I'm not a big ranch guy. I probably put that 5. Yeah.
Yeah, I love ranch.
That's just those are my weird tastes. I know that most people probably would have ranch 1. I mean, I know people that put ranch on everything, but it's 5 for me.
All right, spinach and artichoke dip. So you have 1 and 4. You have 1 and 4 left.
I like spinach and artichoke dip. I guess I got to put it 1.
Nice. All right. Yeah. Polar jam, blue cheese. My jam. I'm out on blue cheese too. I don't like the blue.
Yeah, that would be low for me too.
As a dressing, like on a salad, like maybe. But I'm not a blue cheese guy. Last one. Now this is gonna be number 4 for you, no matter what.
Let's see if I chose right or wrong.
Queso.
Yeah, I like spinach and artichoke dip better than queso. Yeah.
Interesting. Here we go. Yeah,
I feel okay about that.
Yeah, so you went spinach artichoke 1, guac 2, hummus 3, queso 4, ranch 5.
I'd probably flip guac and spinach and artichoke dip, but I think the rest of it would be my actual.
That's pretty good.
So yeah.
There you go. All right. Well done.
All right. Appreciate it. Well, everybody, you can tune back in on Monday. I'm sure we'll talk more about dip. We'll talk more about football, and we'll actually have some real training camp. So, Fran, thank you for carrying me during the show and telling me about all of these depth secondary players and safeties. Everybody, I hope you have a great weekend, the last weekend of no Eagles football until mid-February. Check out the PHLY Eagles show next week. I believe Bo is back, 2 p.m., and I will end it the way he always ends it by saying, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.